Marcus Wilson lived in the quiet neighborhood of Oakwood for 15 years. A kind man with warm brown eyes that crinkled when he smiled, Marcus worked hard at his job with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Few in the neighborhood knew about his important position. He preferred to keep his work and home life separate. His most faithful companion was Rocky, a gentle 3-year-old Labrador who greeted everyone with enthusiastic tail wags. Rocky had been Marcus's comfort since his wife passed away 2 years ago. "Come on, boy," Marcus would say each evening, clipping on Rocky's leash for their sunset walk around Palmer Park. Their peaceful routine changed forever on a crisp autumn evening. Marcus had been working late, and his neighbor Tom had offered to let Rocky out into the fenced backyard. Nobody expected what would happen next. A misunderstanding, a call to the police about a dangerous animal from a new resident who didn't know Rocky, officers arriving with little information. And then the sound that shattered Marcus's world, a gunshot that took Rocky's life before Marcus could even reach home. When Marcus pulled into his driveway and saw the police cars, something inside him broke. His hands trembled as Officer James Bennett explained what had happened, how they had responded to an emergency call about an aggressive dog, how they had made a split-second decision when Rocky ran toward them, excited to greet new friends. "I'm sorry, sir," Officer Bennett said, not yet knowing who Marcus was. "The animal charged at us. We followed protocol." Marcus stood silently, tears streaming down his face as he looked at Rocky's still form on the lawn. His FBI credentials sat heavy in his pocket, unused. The next morning, Marcus couldn't get out of bed. The house felt empty without Rocky's paws clicking on the wooden floors. No wet nose pushed against his hand, no wagging tail greeted him, just silence and memories. He called his boss at the FBI office. "I need some time," was all he could manage to say. His boss understood immediately. "Take all the time you need, Marcus." News spread quickly in Oakwood. By afternoon, neighbors began stopping by. They brought food Marcus couldn't eat and words that couldn't heal. Tom, the neighbor who had let Rocky out, couldn't look Marcus in the eye. "I should have stayed with him," Tom said, voice breaking. "I'm so sorry, Marcus." Marcus just nodded. He didn't blame Tom. He didn't even blame the new resident who had called the police. But the officers, their quick judgment, their fear of a friendly dog, that was harder to accept. 3 days after Rocky died, Police Chief Robert Parker knocked on Marcus's door. The older man had clearly not slept well. He held his hat in his hands. "Mr. Wilson," the chief began, "I've learned you work for the FBI. I want you to know that doesn't change our investigation into what happened. We're taking this very seriously." Marcus invited him in. They sat in the living room where Rocky's bed still lay in the corner, untouched. "Officer Bennett is devastated," Chief Parker continued. "He's a good officer with a clean record. We're reviewing our training protocols regarding animals." Marcus found his voice at last. "A good dog is dead because your officer was afraid, because he didn't take time to assess the situation. Rocky never hurt anyone. He just wanted to say hello." The chief nodded slowly. "I understand your anger." "This isn't anger," Marcus interrupted. "This is grief and disappointment. I wear a badge too, Chief Parker. I know what it means to make split-second decisions, but I also know what it means to be careful with that power." After the chief left, Marcus sat alone in the growing darkness. On the mantel was a photo of him and Rocky, taken last summer at the lake. Rocky's tongue hanging out, water dripping from his fur, eyes bright with joy. Marcus's arm around his loyal friend. That night, Marcus made a decision. He wouldn't use his FBI position to punish Officer Bennett or the department. That wasn't what Rocky would have wanted. Instead, he would channel his grief into something that might prevent other families from experiencing this pain. He opened his laptop and began researching police training programs for animal encounters. By morning, he had the beginnings of a plan. It wouldn't bring Rocky back, but it might give meaning to his loyal companion's too short life. As dawn broke over Oakwood, Marcus finally slept, his first peaceful rest since that terrible night. In his dreams, he and Rocky walked together through Palmer Park, the autumn leaves golden in the sunlight. No sadness, no endings, just the two of them together again. The end. The days following Rocky's death passed in a blur of grief and anger. Marcus took 2 weeks of leave from work, spending most days sitting in his empty house, looking at Rocky's unused leash hanging by the door. Officer Bennett discovered Marcus's FBI position the next day when his superior called him in. "You shot an FBI agent's dog?" Without proper assessment of the situation, the news spread quickly through the department, causing tension and defensiveness. But Marcus wasn't interested in using his position for revenge. As the fog of initial grief lifted, he found himself thinking about change instead of punishment. "This isn't just about Rocky," he told his colleague William when he finally returned to work. "It's about training, communication, understanding. How many other pets or worse people could be hurt because of poor protocols?" Marcus began researching police training procedures regarding animals. He gathered statistics, expert opinions, and alternative approaches. With methodical precision, the same care he used in his FBI investigations, he built a case for reform. 1 month after Rocky's death, Marcus requested a meeting with Police Chief Robert Thompson. "I'm not here to place blame," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the emotion behind it. "I'm here to suggest changes that could prevent this from happening to someone else." Chief Thompson, a gray-haired man with 30 years on the force, had expected accusations. Instead, he found himself faced with carefully researched proposals. "Officer Bennett isn't a bad person," Marcus continued, "but he and others need better training, and the community needs better understanding of law enforcement challenges." As he left the station that day, Marcus passed Officer Bennett in the hallway. Their eyes met briefly, 2 men connected by tragedy, both unsure how to move forward. That night, for the first time since Rocky died, Marcus ordered takeaway instead of forgetting to eat. A small step, but the beginning of his journey toward healing and change. The police station felt cold and unwelcoming as Marcus walked through its doors a week later. Chief Thompson had agreed to a follow-up meeting. This time, Officer Bennett would be present. Marcus's heart raced as he waited in the small conference room. The folder of research felt heavy in his hands. When the door opened, Chief Thompson entered first, followed by a man Marcus recognized immediately, the officer who had shot Rocky. James Bennett looked different out of uniform, younger, tired. His eyes carried shadows that hadn't been there the night of the shooting. "Mr. Wilson," Chief Thompson began, "Officer Bennett has asked to speak with you directly." Marcus nodded, his throat tight. Bennett sat down across from Marcus. His hands shook slightly as he placed them on the table. "I've been an officer for 6 years, Bennett said quietly. "I've never fired my weapon outside of training until that night. I keep seeing your dog in my dreams. I keep thinking about what I could have done differently." The room fell silent. Marcus had prepared for many reactions, defensiveness, excuses, even anger, but not this raw honesty. "I grew up afraid of dogs," Bennett continued. "My training taught me to see them as potential threats. When your dog ran toward me—" He paused, struggling for words. "I reacted from fear, not from proper assessment. I'm truly sorry." Marcus felt something shift inside him. The anger that had been his companion since Rocky's death began to loosen its grip. "Rocky never met a stranger," Marcus said finally. "Just a friend he hadn't greeted yet." Bennett nodded, a tear sliding down his cheek. "I've requested additional training." The chief approved it. "But I wanted to tell you personally that I'm committed to making sure this doesn't happen again." After the meeting, Marcus walked through Palmer Park, where he and Rocky had spent so many evenings. The trees were beginning to lose their leaves, the days growing shorter. An idea began to form in his mind, not just police training but community education too, a place where officers and residents could learn together. A lasting memorial to Rocky that might save other lives. That evening, William called to check on him. "You sound different," William observed. "More like yourself." "I met with Officer Bennett today," Marcus explained. "He's struggling too. It made me realize something." "What's that?" Rocky brought joy to everyone he met. If his memory can bring positive change, that's what he would want. 3 weeks later, Marcus presented his full proposal to the Oakwood City Council. The room was packed with curious residents and uniformed officers. Chief Thompson sat in the front row beside Officer Bennett. The Rocky Wilson Memorial Program has 3 parts, Marcus explained. First, expanded training for all officers on animal behavior. Second, community education on responsible pet ownership. And third, a partnership between police and local animal shelters. As Marcus outlined the details, he noticed heads nodding throughout the room. Even some of the more skeptical council members seemed interested. This tragedy revealed a gap in our community, Marcus concluded. But it also presents an opportunity to build something better, something that honors a good dog and makes Oakwood safer for everyone. When the council voted unanimously to approve the program, something unexpected happened. The room erupted in applause. People Marcus had never met approached him with handshakes and kind words. Officer Bennett was the last to speak with him. "Thank you," he said simply, "for seeing beyond your loss, for giving me a chance to make things right." That night, Marcus removed Rocky's leash from its hook by the door. He held it for a long moment, then carefully placed it in a box with Rocky's collar and favorite toy. He wasn't ready to put these memories away forever, but he was ready to make room for new possibilities. As he closed the box, Marcus felt Rocky's spirit close by. Not gone, just transformed, into purpose, into hope, into the promise of healing. The end. 3 months after Rocky's death, Marcus stood before 20 police officers and 15 community members in the Oakwood Community Center. The room hummed with tension. "Thank you all for coming," Marcus began. "I'm not here as an FBI agent or as a grieving pet owner. I'm here as a neighbor who believes we can do better." The community dialogue session was the first result of Marcus's proposals. Chief Thompson had agreed to implement new training protocols and community engagement initiatives, starting with these facilitated conversations. Officer Bennett sat in the front row, his posture stiff but his presence voluntary. Next to him sat Eleanor Fisher, an elderly resident who had lost trust in local police after witnessing Rocky's shooting from her window. "I'd like each person to share one concern and one hope," Marcus continued. The conversation began awkwardly. Louise Parker, a local teacher, expressed fear about calling police when needed. Officer Richard Taylor defended his colleagues' difficult split-second decisions. Voices rose, old grievances surfaced. Marcus had expected this. "This isn't about finding quick answers," he reminded everyone. "It's about learning to hear each other." Slowly, the tenor changed. Officer Bennett stood up, his voice slightly shaky. "I've been an officer for 8 years," he said. "I became a policeman to protect people. But that day with the dog, with Rocky, I made a mistake. I've replayed it 1,000 times, wishing I could change what happened." The room fell silent. Marcus felt a tightness in his chest. "I'm here," Officer Bennett continued, "because I never want to make that kind of mistake again, and because I owe it to Rocky's memory to do better." By the end of the evening, the group had created a list of community concerns and police perspectives. They scheduled another meeting for the following month. It wasn't resolution, but it was a beginning. As people filed out, Eleanor Fisher approached Officer Bennett. Marcus watched as the elderly woman spoke quietly to the officer, their conversation ending with a tentative handshake, small steps, connection forming in the spaces where understanding grew. The next meeting brought twice as many people. Word had spread about the honest conversation at the first gathering. Marcus arrived early to set up chairs in a circle rather than rows. "No front, no back," he explained to Chief Thompson. "Everyone equal." Rain tapped against the windows as people arrived, shaking umbrellas and removing wet coats. Marcus noticed Officer Bennett helping Eleanor Fisher to her seat, carrying her handbag as she used her walking stick. "We have new faces tonight," Marcus began once everyone was settled. "Before we start, I'd like to share something personal." He pulled a photo from his pocket. Rocky as a puppy, all paws and floppy ears. "This isn't about blame anymore," Marcus said, passing the photo around the circle. "It's about creating something good from loss. It's what Rocky would have wanted." Tonight's topic was fear, how fear affected both police decisions and community responses. People shared stories Marcus had never heard before. Officer Taylor described being attacked on duty, the fear that lived in his body every time he answered a call. Mrs. Jenkins from Maple Street talked about her black teenage son being stopped. 3 times in 1 month while walking home from basketball practice. I'm afraid every time he leaves the house, she said, her voice breaking. The officer who had stopped her son was in the room. He looked down at his hands, then slowly raised his eyes to meet hers. I didn't know, he said simply. I didn't see his fear, only my own. During the break, Marcus overheard Eleanor speaking with Officer Bennett. I've brought something for you, she said, handing him a small book. It's about understanding dog behavior. My late husband was a veterinarian. This helped him teach children how to safely interact with animals. Bennett accepted the book with surprise. Thank you, Mrs. Fisher. I've been studying, but this will help. Eleanor, she corrected him with a small smile. We're neighbors now, James. The following week, Marcus received a call from the mayor's office. The mayor wanted to observe the next meeting. This program of yours is creating quite a buzz, his assistant explained. People are talking about the Oakwood model. Marcus hadn't thought of his efforts as a model, but the idea took root. If it worked in Oakwood, why not elsewhere? The third meeting focused on solutions. Small groups tackled different challenges, improving emergency response protocols, creating youth programs to build positive relationships with officers, establishing a community review process for police training. Officer Bennett led the group working on animal response procedures. Eleanor Fisher sat beside him, contributing her knowledge from years of living with her husband's veterinary practice. Each animal has a story, she explained to the group. Like people, they communicate in ways we need to learn to read. As the IE meeting concluded, Chief Thompson asked to speak. When Marcus first came to me with his proposals, I saw them as criticism, he admitted. Now I see them as opportunity. My officers report feeling more connected to the community. Response times are improving because people are more willing to provide clear information. This is what good policing looks like. After everyone left, Marcus stayed behind to clean up. He found a note left on his chair. In shaky handwriting, it read, "You turned your pain into healing for our whole town. Rocky would be proud. Eleanor." That night, as Marcus walked home through Palmer Park, he stopped at the spot where he and Rocky used to rest after their evening exercise. The old oak tree still stood, leaves now turning golden with autumn's return. For the first time since Rocky's death, the memory brought a smile rather than just pain. The work wasn't finished. Perhaps it never would be. But something had changed in Oakwood. People were talking who had never spoken before. Understanding was growing in the spaces between differences. Marcus looked up at the stars appearing, in the darkening sky. "We're doing it, boy," he whispered. "We're making it better." The end-on year after Rocky's death, Oakwood had changed. The police department had implemented all of Marcus's suggested training protocols. Officers now carried animal behavior assessment tools and non-lethal deterrence. Community members had formed a neighborhood watch program that worked alongside police rather than in fear of them. Officer Bennett had become the department's community liaison officer, a position created after the dialogue sessions revealed the need for a dedicated bridge builder. He visited schools, explaining police procedures and listening to young people's concerns. Marcus still missed Rocky every day. The pain had transformed from a sharp, constant ache to a gentle sadness that visited him in quiet moments. He had considered adopting another dog, but something held him back. One rainy Tuesday, Marcus received a call from Chief Thompson. "We've got something we'd like to show you," the chief said. "Can you come to Palmer Park tomorrow at noon?" Curious, Marcus arrived at the park the following day to find a small gathering of people. Officers in uniform, neighbors he recognized from the community dialogues, and Chief Thompson standing beside something covered with a tarp. "Marcus," Chief Thompson began, "your work this past year has transformed not just our department, but our entire community. Today we want to honor that work and Rocky's memory." He pulled away the tarp to reveal a sign. "Rocky's Run, Community Dog Park, where understanding grows." Behind the sign stretched a newly fenced area with benches, water stations, and play equipment for dogs. "The department raised half the funds," Officer Bennett explained, stepping forward. "The community donated the rest. We wanted a place where dogs could run safely and where their owners could connect with each other." Marcus stood speechless. overwhelmed by the gesture. As if on cue, Officer Bennett added, "There's one more thing." He whistled, and from behind a nearby tree came a small black and white puppy bounding toward them. "This is Max," Officer Bennett said as the puppy reached them. "He failed police dog training because he's too friendly. He needs a home with someone who understands both animals and people." The puppy looked up at Marcus with hopeful eyes, his tail wagging just like Rocky's used to do. For the first time in a year, Marcus felt his heart truly begin to heal. The sunshine warmed Marcus's face as he bent down to meet the puppy. Max immediately licked his hand, tail wagging so hard his whole body shook with joy. "He's been living with me for 2 weeks, officer," Bennett explained. "The trainers said he's too social to focus on police work. He wants to greet everyone, not track them." Marcus looked into the puppy's eager brown eyes. Something in his chest loosened. A knot of grief he hadn't realized was still there. "May I?" he asked, holding out his arms. Bennett nodded, and Marcus scooped up the wiggling ball of fur. Max immediately tried to lick his face, paws scrambling against his chest. Eleanor Fisher stepped forward from the small crowd. "He reminds me of Rocky," she said softly. "Not in looks, but in spirit." Marcus nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. Chief Thompson cleared his throat. "The dog park will officially open next month, but we wanted you to see it first. Your name isn't on the sign, but everyone knows this wouldn't exist without you." As Marcus carried Max around the new park, people came to greet them. Louise Parker showed him the education area where school groups would learn about dog safety. Officer Taylor pointed out the memorial wall where community members could place photos of their pets. "We're planning training sessions here too," Bennett explained. "Officers and dog owners together, learning from each other." The rain began again, a gentle spring shower. People began to disperse, heading for their cars with promises to see each other at the official opening. Marcus stood under a newly planted oak tree, Max still in his arms. "What do you think, boy?" he whispered. "Should we give this a try?" The puppy responded by settling more comfortably against his chest, as if he'd found his place. That evening, Marcus brought Max home. The house that had felt too empty for so long now filled with puppy energy. Max explored every corner, sniffed at Rocky's old toys that Marcus had kept in a box, and finally fell asleep on Marcus's lap as they sat on the couch. As weeks passed, Max grew quickly. He wasn't Rocky. Marcus never expected him to be, but he brought his own joy into the house. Each morning, Marcus woke to a wagging tail and eager eyes ready for adventure. They visited Rocky's run almost daily. Max made friends with every dog and human he met. Marcus found himself talking with people he might never have spoken to otherwise. One evening, as summer approached, Officer Bennett joined them for their walk. "The commissioner wants to expand the program to other districts," Bennett told him. "He's asking if you'd be willing to help train other departments." Marcus watched Max playing with a golden retriever, both dogs racing in happy circles. "I'd like that," he said. "Rocky's legacy growing beyond Oakwood." Bennett nodded. "You know, I almost quit the force after what happened. I couldn't forgive myself." "But you stayed," Marcus said, "because you showed me there was a better way to make amends than walking away. Real change comes from staying and doing the hard work." As they walked home that evening, Max trotting happily beside them, Marcus realized something important. The tragedy that had broken his heart had also opened it in ways he never expected. The pain of losing Rocky would always be part of him, but now it existed alongside something new, a community transformed, friendships formed across divisions, and the warm presence of Max bounding ahead on the path, looking back to make sure Marcus was following. "Come on, boy," Marcus called, his heart lighter than it had been in a very long time. "Let's go home." The end 5 years passed. Rocky's Run Dog Park had become the heart of Oakwood community life. On sunny weekends, the park filled with families, dog owners, and often off-duty police officers who brought their own pets. Marcus and Max had become fixtures there. Max had grown into a gentle, people-loving dog who seemed to sense when someone needed comfort. Together with Officer Bennett, now Lieutenant Bennett, Marcus had established the Oakwood Community Safety Initiative, a program that trained both officers and residents in communication, de-escalation, and mutual support. The program had been so successful that police departments from neighboring counties had begun implementing similar models. Marcus had been invited to speak at national law enforcement conferences about community police relations. Today was special, the 5th anniversary of Rocky's run. Marcus watched as Lieutenant Bennett supervised children taking turns on the park's new obstacle course with their dogs. "Quite a change from 5 years ago," came a voice beside him. It was Eleanor Fisher, now 83 and using a cane, but still a regular visitor to the park with her small terrier. "I never would have believed it," she admitted. "I used to cross the street when I saw a police car. Now my grandson wants to be an officer like Mr. James." Marcus smiled. Change happens slowly, but it does happen. As the afternoon celebration continued, Marcus stood to address the gathered crowd. "5 years ago, a tragedy brought us to a crossroads," he began. "We could have chosen anger and division. Instead, we chose understanding and growth." He looked around at the faces before him. Officers and civilians, young and old, all united in this space created from loss. Rocky's legacy isn't just this park. It's the community we've built, the trust we've earned, the connections we've formed. In our divided world, we've shown that healing is possible when we listen more than we speak, when we seek to understand before being understood. Max leaned against his leg, offering silent support as always. "Every day we have choices to make," Marcus concluded. "May we always choose connection over division, understanding over judgment, and hope over fear." As the applause died down and people returned to their conversations and activities, Marcus felt a sense of peace wash over him. Rocky's life had been cut short, but his memory had created something beautiful and lasting. Sometimes Marcus thought as he watched Max play with a group of children, our greatest losses lead to our most important discoveries about ourselves, about others, and about the healing power of community. After his speech, Marcus walked through the crowd, stopping to chat with familiar faces. People shared stories about how the park and the community program had touched their lives. Mary Turner, whose son had once feared police officers, told Marcus how her boy now waved excitedly whenever a patrol car passed. "He knows them all by name now," she said with wonder in her voice. Officer Williams showed Marcus pictures of the therapy dog he had adopted last year. "I never would have considered it before the training," he admitted. "Now I can't imagine my life without her." As the celebration continued, Marcus found a quiet bench under the large oak tree in the center of the park. Max settled at his feet, content to watch the activity from a distance. From here, Marcus could see the whole park. Children playing, dogs running freely, officers and community members talking easily with one another. So different from the tension that had filled Oakwood 5 years ago. Lieutenant Bennett joined him, holding 2 cups of lemonade. He handed one to Marcus and sat down beside him. "The mayor wants to name you Citizen of the Year," Bennett said, with a smile. "I told her you'd probably try to refuse." Marcus laughed softly. "She'd be right." "Accept it," Bennett urged, "not for yourself, but for what it represents. People need symbols of hope." They sat in comfortable silence, watching as Eleanor Fisher's grandson carefully brushed her terrier while she gave instructions. "I got a call yesterday," Marcus said finally, "from the FBI director. They want to use our training program at the national level. They're calling it the Rocky Protocol." Bennett's eyes widened. "That's incredible." "It feels right," Marcus said. "Taking this beyond Oakwood." Rocky would have liked that. He never met a stranger, just friends he hadn't greeted yet. As evening approached, families began packing up blankets and leashes. The celebration was ending, but its effects would continue. Marcus knew that tomorrow and the day after, and the days after that, people would return to this space built from loss and filled with new beginnings. On his way out of the park, Marcus stopped at the memorial wall. Rocky's photo held a place of honor at the center, a happy Labrador with bright eyes and a wagging tail. Around it were pictures of other beloved pets, each one special to someone. Marcus touched the frame gently. "Look what you started, boy," he whispered. Walking home as the sun set, Marcus and Max took their usual route through the quiet streets of Oakwood. Children playing in front yards waved to them. An older couple sitting on their porch called out, Greetings." At the corner, a police car slowed. The young officer inside smiled and gave a friendly nod before continuing on patrol. This was Rocky's true legacy, not just a park or a program, but a community transformed. A place where fear had given way to understanding, where tragedy had become the soil from which something beautiful had grown. At home, Marcus sat on his porch with Max beside him, watching as stars appeared in the darkening sky. The pain of loss would always be with him, but it no longer defined him. Instead, it had shaped him into someone who could build bridges where once there had been only walls. "Good boy," Marcus said, stroking Max's head. The words were for Max, but also for Rocky, whose memory lived on in everything that had changed. In Oakwood, as night settled fully over the town, Marcus felt a deep sense of contentment. The journey from grief to healing had been long and often difficult, but worth every step. The end.